Welcome, Normie, our other host over here. It's Cuñado, our NFL draft expert. We had some technical difficulties, and due to time, about 9 Central, but we should get some teams in. We've pretty much figured we were going to do a part 3 anyway, and doing
great. Also, I feel like, it's only good. It means more detail, more fun breaking it down. Just for the delay. That was really happy to be here and happy to see you guys. How are y'all doing?
I'm doing here. Pretty good. I made it. Yeah. And regardless if it wasn't your, that's the dims the rules around. Let's see. Let's share this. Let's get our pretty faces on here. All right. So last time we left off at Carolina. So what'd y'all think about Carolina's? Oh, for me, I was pretty interested that they took J.C. Horn over Patrick Surtain. I thought Surtain was going to go at least be the number 1 cornerback.
I heard it in a breakdown. I think it was Greg McElroy talking about it. What's up, Phoenix? How's it going, buddy? Yeah, by Greg McElroy, that as far as a non-quarterback player who changed a game and single-handedly won a game, they're playing Auburn and completely taking Seth Williams out of the game. I know Santana probably has some thoughts on that personally, which I think maybe that's where Carolina's thought process was. Patrick Surtain barely got thrown at. People would just shut off that side of the field. I can't even remember which coach it was that was quoted saying the other side of the field because Bama is Bama. Horn completely shut down Seth Williams. I think that it was a lot of pass interference, which is kind of a knock on his style of game. Probably not going to get away with some of his physicality in the NFL going over Surtain. I don't think he's the physically talented overall as Surtain, but he only has instinct. A great pick. And also not surprising because Matt Rule spent 8 picks to coach taking defensive players, did not take a single offensive player in the entire draft, and then went number 9 in the first round at number 8 to go and do another defensive. So
I was surprised that Horn went before mock draft opinions, but really Horn's more of a press guy in your face. And Surtain plays in that cover through their thought process, interference, the holding, getting caught in holding situations like that. But that was like it. So him being the second one off the board wouldn't have surprised me. Him being the first is surprising, but not to take anything away from him. I think that he's going to be a spectacular corner. I would have loved to have had him. Y'all are going to hear me talk about how many players I would have loved to have had at 12. But obviously, we know what happened otherwise. The Seth Williams, you said shut him down. I don't think that that's necessarily how I would talk about that particular game. He did dog Seth Williams the whole game. Seth had a couple of plays on his end. I think that if Seth is quarterback as opposed to that's unfair. Noodle, he's a phenomenally talented player, but he just made some really interesting decisions throwing the football. Horn versus Seth. So, but yeah, I think it's a great pick. I think that Carolina. I love Matt Rule's. So, yeah, I think it's a fantastic pick, especially when you go and address the offense with the pick.
Made a pretty blockbuster deal for Sam Darnold, and we'll see how that pays and plays. It's a little bit of both. I think they deal for Darnold. I'm not super sold on him, especially there's nothing about Sam Darnold to me that I've seen that says he's significantly better than Teddy Bridgewater at Teddy Bridgewater's best. So, but
I think you're looking at upside there with athleticism and overall arm talent.
Some good situation, especially when he was dealing with the Vikings. I mean, they made him look good. They made Houston
Case Keenum
look good. And was it Sam Bradford that same year?
In that same area. I don't know if it was the same year, but yeah, same realm.
Oh yeah, Sam Bradford was there for a little bit,
and everybody got hurt. But before Teddy Bridgewater suffered that super duper tearing up great stats, but all of them were, and they also have all been in other situations where they look pedestrian at best. Has a little bit more upside, and we just don't know because his dumpster fire and a lot of second pick is huge. I think Terrace Marshall is just an incredible pickup. I know he's not rated like Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson, the guys that he played with at LSU. But, I mean, if they're tier 1A and 1B, his tier 2 is, I think personally, a very small step down. He's dealt with some injuries, but otherwise, like, if he can come back from those, I don't know. I'm a Marshall fan. I think that they got a real steal with him.
You've been real high on him the whole process. I think he played only 8 games last year, ends up opting out towards the end of the season. Was he the one with the back injury? There's certain like just outliers that caused him to fall this far. Otherwise, I think you would have seen him in the top 32. So for them to get first round talent in the second round,
Yeah, I think he's had some back issues. I think he's had some hamstring issues. And then, I mean, his opt-out, I think he did with most of his health underneath him. It was kind of one of those – I mean, LSU as a program looked like it was just kind of crumbling internally.
Like it opted out entirely.
Yeah, like some of them opted out real early, and then some of them were like, well, let's see this through. And then, like, the more it didn't go the way that it was supposed to go, or they were coming off of such a high national championship undefeated season, and it was just going sideways. It just kind of felt like a lot of people who still had their health were like, I don't want to do this anymore. and
Especially for LSU.
I don't know what their situations were like. I don't know, but
I think that's what happened. I think that's what happened with Jamar Chase. He was at practice one day and realized that Joe Burrow was not dropping dimes everywhere, and Joe Brady was no longer calling plays. He went, you know what? I'm a little concerned about COVID. I'm going to sit this one out.
We can bookmark that one and I think we've already done Cincy, haven't we?
No.
Have we not?
There will be two more after this. So we got Chicago.
Well, I've got them down, but didn't we do the top 10?
No, we just did our 3 teams.
Oh, wow. We are just not good at managing time. But once again, viewers, that's all the more fun because I've got Cincy notes on that and Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow. Anyways, I think another really good ad for Carolina, they got Chuba Hubbard, who arguably, I mean, a top 2, top 3 running back going into the year, maybe even on some people's list, number 1.
Yeah.
And struggled with off the field issues, not just his own personal stuff, but just within the organization at Oklahoma State before the year happened. Then actually the season starts and stuff just isn't going right. Still kind of on and off the field for him. But when Chuba Hubbard is at full health and full dive, man, he's about as good as anybody. And I think that's going to be a really good compliment to Christian McCaffrey, who so far seems like he's not incredibly durable. I don't think he's injury prone, but he's not – I don't know if taking the pounding of a bell cow as we traditionally see it is going to suit him for a career. I think Chuba Hubbard's a great spell back to be able to alleviate some of that.
I agree with that and hadn't really thought about it until you just said that. But, yeah, I mean, Chris McCaffrey's touching the ball a shit ton. So, yeah, that's going to be great to just – insurance policy for if he does get hurt again, but then also just to take some of the weight off. Also, did you know that Chuba went to high school in Canada?
I did not know that, no.
Well, now you do.
The more you know.
Yeah, I do remember the beginning of the year last year, he was up there in the Heisman talks and at least up there as, number 1 running back draft prospect. I think, yeah, like you said, his off the field stuff. I mean, almost call it. I mean, you're pretty close to calling your coach a racist before the season even starts. Might have something, might affect the locker room and kind of the mentality for the team. So, but didn't he get hurt?
Yeah, no. I think it was a litany of issues. There was some injury, there was some on the field, there was some off the field, and I'm not holding any of that against Hubbard. It kind of seemed like Oklahoma State as a program. I don't know who was right, who was wrong. There was just a lot of smoke. Some crazy how I'll give it to Mike Gundy and their internal workings. They seem to smolder the fire enough to have a season that was fairly regular, a little underwhelming, but fairly regular otherwise, to where it didn't implode. LSU's kind of felt like an implosion, and not really for as tense reasons more than the fact that they had a lot of really high caliber players that were like, I don't want to play because I don't want to waste my time. I would rather go get paid. And that might be painting with a broad brush, and I don't mean to do that either, but Oklahoma State seemed like they might not have a season for a little bit.
Yeah. Let's see who else they got.
Tell me about Deontay Brown, Normie.
Deontay Brown Blastoise. Let me see if I can find that. But yeah, Deontay Brown he's solid. He's been good ever since he's been there. He is a huge dude, but he seems to have pretty good feet. I mean, it's one of those I never really saw like, oh yeah, that guy just got his butt whooped. And of course, I mean, you have a whole offensive line that's kind of like that. So it's kind of hard to tell which one's better. But I think he's going to be pretty good. As long as as long as he doesn't get any bigger, because he is a big boy. And I will try and find that. Well, what do y'all think about him?
I think about him in the way that I think about Alabama offensive linemen, that I can't pick out one from the other because they're all doing well most of the time.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I mean, I can't think of a superstar that's come out of there. There's been a lot that have been projected to be, the next coming, and I don't think I've seen that. But for the most part, they hang around in the league. They have good, solid careers. So,
yeah. Deontay Brown Blastoise isn't real. It can't hurt you. Oh, yeah.
I think they got a big move. Look, one thing about Alabama players, they generally at least have 1 to 2 good, solid seasons.
Yeah.
They might not make it after that. They might not last. They might not even be starters, but they add depth. They add that Saban/Belichick mentality to a locker room. Because there's don't get me wrong, Alabama is producing at such a crazy high level of stars and elite talent, and basically, they had they set the record for number 1 draft picks this year.
Yes.
And have just been consistently setting draft records on the talent they put out, but not everybody's a hit. There's a lot of misses. I mean, I really thought that Clinton Dix would be like a superstar, and he's a great player, but superstar, probably not. I mean,
yeah.
And I thought Marlon Humphreys was really solid, but probably not a superstar, and he's a superstar. So, I mean, it's really tough to tell how people are going to translate from college to the pros, but what you basically can guarantee is an Alabama player in the first 2 or 3 rounds are going to give you 1 to 2 to maybe even 3 good years, no matter how they do after that.
Well, here's the real steal out of Alabama this year. Tell me about your long snapper. How did that go?
Hey, he didn't miss a snap. He didn't mess one up. The only times that something went wrong was because of the punter.
That's not a draftable position. That doesn't make any sense.
If you need it and you're spending a 6th round pick on it, I mean, why not? If you need it, if you look at your team and go, our long snapping could be longer.
Couldn't you just tell, like, you're like
snappier?
Most, like, your most borderline, right on the cusp of getting cut offensive lineman, or hell, defensive lineman, just one of your guys who is big enough and strong enough to throw a block, or a tight end.
Now, what you're really looking for is like a
go practice is long snapping.
The thing is with the long snapper, though, I mean, the long snapper, he snaps, and he's supposed to be the first one that gets to the ball.
That's what I was about to say. You're looking for more of like your speedier linebacker guy, maybe an athletic tight end type guy. So, and then a lot of these guys that are playing in the NFL, that's all they've done since high school. You know, they played everything in high school and then got to college, and that's all they did. So, I mean, it's a specialist position. It's probably as draftable as kicker or punter, really.
Well, and the funny thing about this one is when Matt Rule called him, he thought it was a joke. Fletcher was like, "Yeah, this is a joke." He thought it was a prank call, and Matt Rule's like, "No, like we drafted you. You're coming to Carolina."
Well, I'm a big fan of Matt Rule from his work at Baylor. Is absolutely incredible. I mean, that's about the revival job of the century. The only person in that I can think of in my comparison would be Bill Clark with UAB, taking a program that was dead and buried and gone. I mean, lit on fire, and people wanted nothing to do with it, and to take them to winners. And I mean, it's
two conference championships, and been to the conference championship game 3 years in a row and won two of them.
If he'd stuck around at Baylor, I mean, I think that, I mean, okay, so you take out his last year with the Panthers in 2020 and put him back at Baylor, between Iowa State, Texas, and Oklahoma, and then him still at Baylor. I wouldn't be shocked if Baylor had taken the Big 12. I don't know. I mean, he's that good. That turnaround was immediate. He's an incredibly good coach. The Carolina Panthers got competitive with him pretty quick, even though they weren't like winning games. So I don't know. Maybe there's some method to his madness. But taking Fletcher in the draft whatsoever, where he could have taken somebody else and signed Fletcher as an undrafted free agent, that seems like a college coach move.
Well, was Thomas Fletcher the only long snapper taken?
Yes, I would say so.
Well, that tells
draft history.
That tells me that he's the best damn long snapper that has ever existed, and that's what Matt Rule's seeing. This stream brought to you by Matt Rule.
Oh, also Matt Rule, shout out to the Round Table. Glad you listen, buddy. That's one of my favorite programs.
Hey, he was #1 position rank for that. So
no shit.
They got a 33 for the grade for it, but
because he could have just signed him in free agency. No one else was going to draft him.
Maybe he didn't think
who
that they
else
had
would
the
have
cap.
signed him?
Yeah, maybe anybody could have signed him. He said,
Well,
"I want this
you would
guy."
do it for not the cap. Like draft somebody else who you're going to cut, and then sign him for less money. If they're in the draft, they immediately get more money.
Or you wait till the 7th round and draft him, and then you have to pay him less anyway.
Yeah.
When there's not a muffed kick or a muffed punt all season for Carolina, you'll be looking back at this going, "Damn, Matt Rule was a genius for drafting him. I can't believe that I sounded so stupid being mad at him."
When they're in the Super Bowl and they're punting, and he goes down there and makes the receiver fumble the ball. And then he picks it up and runs it in the end zone.
Yep. Wins the Super Bowl. You're going to feel real stupid.
Yeah.
I've just highlighted this.
You're going to say, you know what? They should have taken him in the 6th.
All right. You guys ready to move on to Chi-Town here?
Yeah.
Because this one's a splash pick. This one's real splashy. And I actually have no notes other than #1.
I was not expecting Fields to go to Chicago. I didn't think they were.
Chicago was expecting Fields to go to Chicago.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, it seems like that's who they wanted, and he was there when they picked. So, hey, I feel bad for Justin Fields. I think I feel more bad for Zach Williams, but I do kind of feel bad for him.
We'll get to the Zach Williams and feeling bad for him. I understand that, but have some optimism about that going forward. I had Justin Fields as my number one quarterback for after the first two go off, and then actually kind of started to lean like, damn, maybe this guy is my favorite quarterback in the draft. Going to Chicago, I mean, who has, and this is not just a Matt Nagy thing, but since we've been alive and watching, like, is Jay Cutler the best to play quarterback at Chicago since we've been old enough to really give a shit?
I mean, Rex Grossman took him to the Super Bowl.
I was literally
he did not take them to the Super Bowl. Rex Grossman was along for the ride on that Super Bowl run. So yeah, what's cool about this pick to me is that you finally have that guy that should be that guy, you know. And
last time they thought they had that was Trubisky, who they
nobody thought that except for them. They're the only ones.
That's true.
Yeah.
Everybody was shocked. Everybody thought Trubisky was a late dark horse rising on the draft boards because of his athleticism. Hadn't actually proven anything, whereas Justin Fields has proven it. Right. He is good at his job at a high level against high-level competition. I mean, the Big Ten is no joke as a conference, and for 2 years he dominated. And in the playoffs looked good until injury. Looked great. So,
and then after injury, if you're just looking at stats or if you're just thinking about what ended up happening in the championship game, then yeah, maybe it doesn't come across that well. But the cat still, yeah, he misses on some throws, but he's still that guy that he's been his entire career. And especially if you watch him after the rib injury against Clemson, dude is dropping dimes downfield. Like, he picked Clemson apart. One of the biggest reasons that I was such a big fan was watching what he did after injury, like because I mean, he got fucked up. Like, he got that was an extremely, extremely hard hit. And I mean, if you try doing anything with busted up ribs, you know, much less throw a football.
And separated.
Yeah.
Cracked and separated.
And he's still out there doing it, which, you know, I'm sure they injected him with all sorts of good stuff, but still, I think a lot of the negatives from the experts was his ability to go through his reads. I didn't see that in the stuff that I watched. A lot of it, I mean, you're playing against competition where they're the cream of the crop in the Big Ten. So like when the first read's open, you throw the first read, you know, like it's hard, but you can watch him, especially against Alabama. You watch him against Alabama and he goes to his second, third throw that entire game, which was a problem because the offensive line could not keep him upright for that long. I saw a stat in Cuñado. I sent it to you. I'm pretty sure that he had the highest passer rating throwing to his second and third reads over everybody else in the draft. I think there's a lot of stuff that came out, and I don't know why, but he got a bad rep that I don't think was there for any legitimate reason. So I think Chicago has, like, to get him at 9. When I think that
the reason is, and I have dwelt on this for quite some time because everything you said is absolutely accurate. The reason is Dwayne Haskins.
Well, yeah,
and Haskins put up also incredible, crazy stats in the exact same system. It's that system quarterback kind of deal.
Well, you would think that this day and age we're getting away from the system quarterback stuff because all the spread spread concepts have flooded the NFL, so it's basically all the same stuff. Ryan Day is a fantastic offensive play caller. His system's fantastic, but I think I sent you this stat too. Justin Fields was throwing downfield like a way higher percentage than what Dwayne Haskins ever did. Dwayne Haskins threw a screen on like 20-something% of his passes. And Justin Fields was the opposite. Like he threw, as a matter of fact, in this draft class, he had the lowest screen throw percentage in the entire draft class. I just think that, I think you're right. It was a perception is reality type deal for a lot of people with Justin Fields. If he hadn't gone to Chicago, I would have been willing to put my hat in the ring of like, this guy's going to be the best quarterback of the class. But he went to Chicago, and I just have a hard time. And it's not necessarily Matt Nagy, even though Matt Nagy has. I mean, he's called some games for Trubisky to make Trubisky look amazing, and I don't think that Trubisky's necessarily bad. But there's something going on in Chicago, whether it's Nagy's system or Nagy's play calling or whatever the hell's happening over there. That I mean, we haven't seen a quarterback other than Cutler be any kind of really special there since we've been watching.
Well, I would say Cutler would be just borderline special.
Well, yeah, no, I mean, I agree. I'm not, but that's what I'm saying too. Is like that's the best we've seen.
Yeah,
Legit.
I mean that's the bar. I mean,
right.
Like, that's a low bar. And yes, I agree with you. Jay Cutler is probably the best quarterback I can think of that the Bears have had in at least 20 years. And correct me if I'm wrong, viewers. I might be way off on that. Once again, Rex Grossman got drugged, kicking and screaming with a Urlacher defense that was out of this world, and then also got shithoused when they got to the Super Bowl. But no, they have not had good quarterback play, and Cutler had pretty decent quarterback play, but inconsistent. He's a turnover machine, not a great leader. And then Trubisky, but in fact, yeah, they've just had kind of a continuation of it, other than Cutler was more consistent than what they've had since then. Because when Trubisky's on, I agree with you. He has all the physical gifts in the world, but he just has that mental block as far as being able to get that done consistently.
And whatever that is or what it's caused by, but I mean, it could be said the same about Sam Darnold. Like those players actually kind of remind me of each other, except for the fact that I was high on Darnold coming out of USC. But as far as athletically, actually even throwing motion, like there's a lot about them that remind me of each other. Both have shown great flashes of potential. Maybe change of scenery would be great for Trubisky also.
Could be. I mean, it happens. I mean, it happens. But I agree. I think if Justin Fields had landed anywhere else, I would be a lot more excited about it. But you just kind of get that feeling about some teams sometimes, like
almost legitimately
fast.
Any of the other 31. Like that's almost how I feel about it. And I mean, there are a bunch of situations out there, Detroit specifically. Like you just there are some just situations, and San Francisco has been in that situation a lot since I've been old enough to give a shit. But some teams just don't seem to get it right, and for whatever reason, I think Justin Fields could have finished his career as the best out of this class, and then he goes to Chicago, and it's like, well, shit, man, like anywhere else, and it's just another one of those situations where I think I'm right. And we'll never have an opportunity to really be proven right or wrong. And
is Chicago becoming the new Browns?
Honestly, Normie, for real, like that's not far off. Because where Cleveland is right now versus where Chicago is, and if you had told me 10 years ago that I would feel more confident about what Cleveland's doing than Chicago, I would have laughed at you. Because
what I will say about Matt Nagy's stint in Chicago is they are consistently in the hunt for the playoffs. I think he's been there 3 years, and they've made the playoffs 2 of those 3 years. He drags a team that looks broken. Anytime I watch them, they look broken. He dragged them kicking and screaming to Hell's Gate. Now, do they do anything in the playoffs? No, God, no. They're not nearly good enough once they get there or once they get on the cusp of to like get over that hump. Like I said, my timeline might be off here, but that's the difference is Cleveland was the absolute basement, and I don't think Chicago is about to fall there. I actually think Justin Fields will keep them at least at that level. I just don't think that he'll elevate them from that level, which is sometimes the worst place to be. Middle of the pack in the NFL it's no man's land. That's a dead, like you don't get good draft picks. You can't trade out or up or in. Like you either have to blow it up or make a crazy blockbuster trade. But for who? Because, I mean, you've got your quarterback for the future now, but you also thought you had that 2 years ago. So it's just a no man's land.
And I think what's good for Justin in this situation is that if he comes in and does not play well, it will not be on him. It's not like they're going to look and be like, wow, Justin Fields sucks. It'll be on Nagy and the whole regime that's over it right now. So what's a benefit for Fields is that no matter what happens this year, especially, I mean, they have Dalton who signed there specifically because they said you'll be the starting quarterback. That'll probably last.
Fans when that happened.
Well, I mean, and you're sitting here, you draft a quarterback at 2 a few years ago who didn't pan out. You bring in Nick Foles, who everybody knew was not very good.
He was the Super Bowl MVP.
Normie, you shut the fuck up about that, okay? That doesn't matter. That doesn't matter, okay?
That's my joke. Is if you try to do something and you don't think you can do it, just always remember Nick Foles was a Super Bowl MVP.
Right.
So you can do what you have to do.
And if Nick Foles can do that, and then also he had the 26-2 touchdown interception season with Chip Kelly. Like, he's had these really flashes of being something spectacular. And when Carson Wentz went down, he played magnificent football from the time Wentz went down to the time they won the Super Bowl. And the whole time I was sitting there looking at Cuñado going, this isn't this guy. Like, whatever is happening is not this guy. Very similar to Joe Flacco when he did it in the playoffs. That's not that guy. That is not that guy.
I got to experience that from the Eagles to the Rams also.
This is not that guy. Poor Bears fans have to keep dealing with these guys who are just not that guy. You bring in Andy Dalton, and it's like, okay, yeah, he put up some numbers. It was great in Cincinnati while it lasted, but he's still just not that dude. So I imagine just the sigh of relief when they did, Fields does fall to that spot. They did move up to get him. They pull the trigger, and it's like, okay, thank God we got this guy. Which, I mean, out of the 2 quarterbacks that fell, I would have taken Justin Fields. So, maybe it'll work out, and I just don't feel good. Hopefully he'll get a chance somewhere else. I hear that Houston will probably be looking for a quarterback very soon.
Oh,
my sources tell me.
Maybe Green Bay, interdivisional trade there.
Yeah.
All right. Do you guys want to try and hammer one more out?
Let's get 2. Y'all got 2?
I got one more. I got to be up at 5 o'clock.
So do I, Normie.
Yeah, I haven't eaten yet.
All right. That's the difference maker. That is a difference maker. All right. Let's hammer one more out.
And we got Cincinnati.
We'll hit Cincy. We'll leave Cleveland on the table, which actually is a lot of fun. I actually have a lot of meat on the bone for Cleveland anyways. So this works out because Cincy, if you guys don't mind me weighing in first, because I'm
Go ahead.
Look, Jamar Chase was a fine pick, I guess. I guess. I've heard a lot of people. I've heard so many people say that he was Justin Jefferson plus. Like, he's better than Justin Jefferson. I watched that LSU championship team. I thought that they were about the same level of talent. I think that Jamar Chase is just the more hyped one. I think Justin Jefferson is, in my opinion, every bit as good, maybe even a little bit better, but doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. All I know is it didn't matter where Joe Burrow was throwing the ball. T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd and their other weapons on the field, it wasn't a matter of drops. And also you got Joe Mixon, who's a dual threat running back out of the backfield. I mean, he runs and catches well. It wasn't a matter of drops. And you're sitting right there at 5, and Penei Sewell's there. And okay, say you don't want to go Penei Sewell. Say you've brushed up and you think another offensive lineman's better. And maybe this is in their mind doing best available. I don't know. But Penei Sewell seems like a kind of a can't-miss pick. And you go Jamar Chase at a position you're not hurting at. I mean, Higgins is great deep. Boyd does everything underneath. And then you have great role players otherwise. And also, if you can work your contract right, you get John Ross, who takes the top off of defense. It just didn't make any sense to me. But I might be eating these words. I don't know.
Well, all I
Go
got
ahead.
to say is, let's see, this right here. That's all I got to say. You got receivers to throw it to. Your star quarterback who was having a breakout season
And getting his ass kicked
this
every
happens.
game.
You
Every
do
game was just getting
before the draft. You do this big photo shoot for your new fancy uniforms, and he's also in white, so it needs to be green. And this is what you see. I feel like they kind of fucked up.
Well, and I agree with you, Cuñado, that maybe you don't have Penei Sewell as your top offensive lineman, but Rashawn Slater's still sitting there. What kills me, and I know that I've said it probably in all three of these things that I've been on with y'all, receiver is a position that is always deep, or especially the past 3 years has been very deep in these drafts. Move out, gain some more picks, add some more offensive line. I don't know. Do I think that Jamar Chase and Waddle and Devontae Smith are probably going to be your best receivers out of this class? Yeah, probably. But are they going to be so much better than a guy that you could have gotten way later? That, the difference, especially this year, the depth at offensive tackle versus the depth at receiver, you're sitting there, take the guy, again, you just showed the picture of the scar. He didn't blow out his knee because he couldn't throw it to somebody or they weren't catching the football. And so is it a bad pick? No, God, no. I do think that the whole they played together in college thing gets blown way out. I agree with you, Cuñado. I've been saying it too, that I think that Jefferson was the better of the two at LSU. Is that taken away from Chase? No, not at all. I think that he's going to be spectacular. He's going to be great with Burrow. And then the more weapons you have, the more open all the weapons get. So, yeah, there's a lot of positives to take away from that pick, but you've got an option to protect your future. I mean, what impressed me the most about Burrow, both at LSU and last year for the few games that he got, was that he seems to not be fazed by contact, which is great because I've seen a few first top five quarterbacks, end up
he gave
floundering
in the world for me last year. Watching him just get pummeled. I mean, because you saw it a little bit in the SEC, but not a lot because he had a great offensive line. But I mean,
watch that
pop him in the mouth and he
watch
get
the
up
Auburn game.
Nothing.
Watch the Auburn game. They win that. Auburn lived in the backfield and beat his ass that entire game. And I kept thinking, holy shit, we might actually have a chance of this because we keep fucking Burrow up. And then he was like, no, I'm good. Joe Cool. And so,
and then
watch the noodle arm.
He did that at an even higher level, taking even bigger hits, and I tuned in to watch the Bengals after watching his first game. I was like, dude, he is getting crushed almost every play, and he pops back up like nothing happened. But I was just sitting there thinking, this is not sustainable for anybody. I can't he gained so much respect watching him. Nobody should be able to pop back up like this isn't happening.
Well, even one of those times, there's a clip of the head referee coming up to him after a play where he got the hell knocked out of him because he held on to the ball too long, and the ref's like, "Yeah, you might want to throw that ball away a little quicker."
Well, and here's just my final point, and then I'll let you guys attack this thing as much as you want because I know I've talked on it more than anybody else. When's the last time somebody drafted a receiver and it brought you to a Super Bowl, AFC, NFC championship, or the playoffs? I mean, Odell Beckham Jr. didn't do shit for the Giants, and he was arguably the best receiver in the game for a little while. Antonio Brown went to the Steelers, but they were already good anyways. And then also, did they win a Super Bowl with him? No. I mean, Mike Evans for the Buccaneers, but that's 6, 7, 8 years later now. I mean, and also happened with a team overhaul. There is no such a thing as getting a receiver that high. Julio Jones. There's no such a thing as getting a receiver that high and it changing your team. They might be great. They might be Hall of Fame talent. It does not change your team.
Detroit took 27 receivers in the first round for 27 straight years. And
Calvin Johnson is, in my opinion, the most physically gifted receiver of all time. And he retired early because he knew, like, well, I'm never going to win. And also, I'm tired of getting the shit kicked out of me for a team that's never going to win. Sorry, Cody, if you're watching. I mean, but there's no reason, there's no way that's not what's run through his head. And I've never watched anybody be able to do the stuff. Larry Fitzgerald, man, a receiver does not change your team at all. Justin Jefferson, offensive rookie of the year, Vikings. Justin Jefferson was great this year. He was absolutely incredible. It changed nothing. In the overall landscape of things, it changed nothing. Why would you do that as a team trying to rebuild?
Yeah, I mean, and the only argument for there's not one. Like, you either take offensive line if you want to build from there, or you go defense if you want to build from there. And there's not that defensive player that's going to drastically change the team. Maybe Parsons, maybe one of the cornerbacks, but really at the fifth spot. So, I mean, I don't know. Maybe do you take Chase? Did they take Chase specifically because he played at LSU? Like, there's no way that you're looking at that, specifically this receiver, and saying this will drastically change what we're doing this upcoming season. The only thing that I can give them credit for is that they do follow right up with the guard from Clemson. They take
Jackson Carman apparently was projected a lot higher, dealt with a little bit of injury issue, came out, I think, as a 5-star guy. I mean, so he's physically gifted. I agree with you, Santana. I mean, they do address it later.
I didn't know him at the time, and you and I said at the time, it was like, well, he did play for Clemson, so that's got to stand for something.
Yeah.
They end up going and taking a tackle out of East Carolina and then a center also in the 6th round. So at least they did address like all the positions, you know. Now, what will that translate going forward? I don't know. So maybe they had higher grades on these guys than any of us would, obviously. And they said, let's take the highest receiver in the class and build the offensive line later. I don't know. That's the only defense I could give them. They got a kicker, you know.
Yeah.
I know how you feel about kickers. So
this round.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And let me tell you something, Cuñado, that guy can't snap it to himself. I don't know what's going to happen because I didn't see a long snapper in their draft.
look, the thing is, after watching Burrow play, man, like, and just getting his ass kicked, play in and play out, and getting up and still throwing dimes, if he had stayed healthy, it would have been one hell of a race between who was the better rookie quarterback between him and Herbert, who Justin Herbert for the Chargers played arguably one of the greatest, or not arguably, it was 100% one of the greatest rookie campaigns of a quarterback of all time. And he was arguably the offensive rookie of the year. It's just Justin Jefferson had a little bit of a head start on him and did show out. Don't get me wrong. He played incredible. He just didn't change anything about the Vikings' future.
No, they replaced Diggs with that pick. That's all that they did when they took Jefferson. It was like, well, we lost Diggs, but so, you know, take this guy. So they replaced that
with another guy.
Yeah.
That's not fair. We'll be slightly above average with this other guy.
Right. Well, I mean, that's the thing. You just replaced what your offense was already doing. And what did that get you? The same thing that you always get as a Kirk Cousins led anything.
Same results, whereas the Chargers are on an upswing, a big upswing. Anyways, yeah, I watched Burrow just get crushed. I was really pulling for them to do something awesome, and then they took Jamar Chase. And I was like, well, cool. Chemistry, I hope it works out. I'm sure it will. I am sure their connection will put up a bunch of yards and a lot of really cool stats. It won't change the Bengals' future whatsoever.
But it does lead us to my favorite pick in the draft. So, or in the first round, at least.
Alrighty. Well, any more on Cincinnati? I think we've torn them a new one pretty well.
Yeah, I've expounded upon that. Yeah, no. There was nothing else that they did in the draft. I thought everything else they did in the draft was either fine to good.
Well,
nothing great.
Well, I mean, and there's not like that giant steal. I don't know anything about the guys that they took later. But you do take, all right, so you go and take that splash pick, which could have been that too. I mean, maybe you're trying to win the press conference. I don't know. But you take that splash pick and then spend, you kind of address the rest of, or you address the line of scrimmage with the rest of the picks. There's a couple of defensive tackles in there. There's guard, tackle, and center for the offensive line. So I don't know.
Well, I mean, that's another thing, man. Like, yeah, their offensive line was absolute shit, and Joe Burrow was getting his ass kicked all year long, but their defense was also incredibly porous. Their wide receiver was not a position of need.
Not at 5, I don't think. I mean, I think that you could upgrade, especially after losing AJ. Not that you really had him last year, but
trade back. If that's what you want to do,
you know how I feel about value. Yeah, I'm all about moving back. More picks, more value. But I don't know. Maybe it was just like a, look, Joe, we got you a buddy.
Sorry for blowing out your knee.
Yeah, sorry about your knee and costing you Rookie of the Year. Our fault.
Do you think that pisses Aaron Rodgers off even more? Not only did they give him a receiver, it's the same receiver
also,
from college.
For a quick recap, I will say Aaron Rodgers has never taken a pay cut.
Alrighty.
We had talked about that and looking into it. He has never restructured. He has been the highest paid quarterback twice, although one time very briefly. He set the standard 2 times, which he should. He is the most physically gifted, other than Patrick Mahomes, quarterback I've ever watched play. But
have you heard of Jeff Garcia?
I will say he does a whole lot of bitching. And he has played with Greg Jennings, who is
when he first took over, man, that whole receiving core was fantastic.
Yeah, Greg Jennings, Jermichael Finley, Donald Driver. He's had Jordy Nelson, Randall Cobb, and now Devontae Adams. Not a one of those guys are, bat your eyes at him. Tom Brady, the GOAT. He's had Randy Moss for 1 year, and that was really an over-the-hill Randy Moss. This past year,
that Randy Moss was not an over-the-hill Randy Moss.
No.
Was Randy Moss over the hill?
He did. Tom Brady.
Well, look, and that was they added
incredible.
That year. They added him, Dante Stallworth, who I know nobody talks about or thinks about, but legit starter at one point, and Wes Welker in the slot that year. They added like all those pieces at one time, because before that he was thrown to like Deion Branch, and not to take anything away from him, but
a very, very good receiver. But would you know Deion Branch's name if he hadn't played with Brady and the Patriots in their run to Super Bowls?
We're Twitter friends.
Yeah. Well, and I agree with you. I mean, Randy Moss, Stallworth, Wes Welker, those guys, their names are etched in history. That's like the one time. Even since then, like there's not like a whole lot of number one guys. Like he had Gronk and Murder Hernandez, and but other than that, like there just hadn't been a whole lot that he's had. I mean, Edelman. I love Julian Edelman, one of the toughest players. I love what he's done. I love the utility of the player, but there's no way that we know Julian Edelman without Tom Brady. You know? Nope.
And it's one of my least favorite arguments for Tom Brady, because I'm such a big Peyton Manning fan, but Peyton had 2 Hall of Fame receivers and Dallas Clark all at one time, and Edgerrin James. So, And so Aaron can suck it is what we're getting at. Still free the man though. Like, if at this point, do you really want to deal with that? Like, no, you drafted somebody. That's the thing. If you hadn't drafted somebody and he was being a punk, then fine. But you drafted somebody to replace him.
Yeah.
So you brought this on yourself. Like, if he wants to go, you drafted a guy. You believed in that guy to trade up and then not take a receiver in that draft. Let Aaron go. Trade him off.
Well, and then also in his position, he knows how this goes. He was that guy. He was Jordan Love.
Yeah, but
he was the guy pushing another great of all time out.
It's so different because that receiving core was so good at that time. Green Bay was good at that time. They picked him at 27, and they didn't move up to pick Aaron Rodgers. They just waited and he fell. It may have been 22, but either way, they were in the 20s, so clearly they weren't terrible. Brett Favre played for 3 more years. It's not the same. I get his irritation, and yes, he is that guy. So yes, he does see what's happening. But it's not the same. I think that the coaching staff or general manager, whoever decided to make these moves, they definitely screwed. They screwed up. Did they screw him? No, not necessarily, but they definitely screwed up.
No, I agree with you. The situation is different. I'm just saying he knows like how it feels to like be that dude that was sitting, waiting to push a GOAT, a greatest of all time, out of their position. And then as soon as his organization moves up to take somebody, because he's getting a little long in the tooth, even though he's still producing. Like, I can see where he's butthurt about it, but at the same time, his complaints are a little bit unwarranted, given the fact that, the guy who just won it has done it with all phases of receivers. The one and only consistent thing that Tom Brady has had is generally a really good offensive line. So don't bitch about your weapons.
Well, in an offensive line, but
Speaking
also
about Cincinnati.
But not only offensive line, but also a defense. You're having one of the greatest coaches of all time and one of the greatest defensive coaches of all time. Same person. Yep. The Patriots consistently have a top 10, 15 defense. I don't know what the Packers have done, but I know that they haven't been great on defense for the majority of Rodgers being there. So at one point in time, I know that he is looking at it's just him and Devontae and whatever the hell else is happening. And so I get a lot of his complaints. I understand it. And when
season they came down the stretch as a number 8, number 9 defense.
Oh, I think the last 2 seasons they've had that type of defense, but the majority of the time, and I could be way off on this, but I feel like the majority of the time, like really, it's over the past like 6 or 7 years where you're really expecting Aaron, because he's still been playing at that high level. You're really expecting him to do something more. They're putting up points. Him and Devontae Adams are throwing it all over the field, and they can't stop anybody. But I do feel like the last 2 seasons they've had like a really good defense until they met Raheem Mostert, who said, "You're not very good at stopping the run. You should probably get that looked at." And then they did. They didn't. They didn't look at that.
Yeah, like shit through a tin horn.
Well, all right, boys. We'll pick it up at Cleveland. We'll call it Thursday at 8 next week. And also, I'll be a little bit more strict on 8. Once again, viewers, this is my fault.
I can't do 8. Can we do like 8:04?
8. Oh, go fuck yourself.
All right. Well, yeah, next week, Thursday, 8 o'clock Central Time. We'll be back here, part 3.
Part 3.
And guys, it's been fun. Can't wait till next week. Thanks for everybody for watching Phoenix Animation. Anybody else, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see everybody next time.
Appreciate you guys. Later.